When you really love wine the way that we do, and especially in a pairing situation, the alcohol gets in the way.
Yes.
Like, I don't want to feel that.
No.
I want to just enjoy this in my mouth. So paying attention to that alcohol definitely makes a difference.
My 22-year-old self would never believe
Well, that's different. Yeah. We're like, wait, you're saying it's low alcohol and that's a good thing? And it's like, yeah, it is a good thing because you can have more of it. Hey there, welcome to this week's Sip with Nikki. I am Nikki Lamberti, and I'm sitting here in a rainy Sonoma County today. And I want to kick off this week's episode with a shout out to two very faithful listeners, Brian and Graham. They were recently in Morocco and driving all over the country and told me that they were listening to Sip with Nikki in the car. So thank you for taking me on the road with you and actually making Morocco the 44th country where Sip with Nikki has been listened to. I also want to thank them for their recent purchase of our 2021 Solovato Sangiovese. So cheers to Brian and Graham, who are back home in Ohio now. And I will put the link in the show notes for anyone who wants to be like Brian and Graham and grab your 2021 Solovato Sangiovese. I am beyond excited to introduce you to a good friend / mentor / inspiration of mine. Smith Story is one of the people that when I launched this podcast over a year ago and had a list of dream guests, she was very close to the top of that list. You see, Allie and I met years ago through our yoga studio, and she and her husband, Eric, were a little bit ahead of Michael and I in the timeline of launching their own small family-owned wine brand called Smith Story Wines. And I remember following the journey and admiring what they were doing and using it as inspiration because I would look at them when this idea of getting a wine label off the ground just seemed daunting and ambiguous and just where do we start? I would look at what Allie and Eric were doing and I would think, hey, we're just like them. We can do this too. And I love drinking their wines. So I'm not surprised that Allie and I went long when I went to her Healdsburg tasting room here in Sonoma County. We had a lot to cover. So I've split it into 2 episodes because there is that much goodness to share. So in this week, part 1, you'll hear how Allie made the leap from Texas to California and how Smith Story was the first winery to be fully crowdfunded through Kickstarter. They have been named Where the Cool Kids Go by Sonoma Magazine. Sometimes it's called the All-American Wine Story. And Allie has been named one of Sonoma Magazine's 5 inspiring wine women. What I love about Allie is not only her business smarts and savviness, but her huge heart and love of dogs. We bond over that, as you'll hear. And also how she and Eric have been able to add some important nonprofit elements to their wine business. Allie is a breast cancer survivor, and she is very open about her experience and very passionate about helping other women and families navigate their battle, and also how she's able to use her wine label to do that. You'll hear our sip spotlight. Hint, hint, she is calling 2025 the year of Sauvignon Blanc. So hold on to your hats, y'all. I am so excited for you to get to know Allie Smith Story in the All-American Wine Story, Part 1.
So good to be here, Nikki.
Happy Sunday.
Happy Sunday. Sunday fun day.
From your beautiful tasting room. We have blue skies. It's going to be, 58 degrees today?
It has been a truly incredibly beautiful January here in Sonoma County. We are so lucky.
We are lucky.
Yeah.
I have so much I want to get to with you, and I'm so excited for my audience to get to know you.
Thank you.
Do you remember how we first met?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. We met over our love of dogs, but we met on the mat, 3-dog yoga.
On the sweaty yoga mat.
Yes.
And I don't know if you remember this, but a shout out to 3-dog yoga and Anna for bringing us together. I still practice with her regularly. Yeah. There was a yoga event. I don't know if it was just like a Sunday class or something, but I remember Anna saying, oh, next week we're going to practice. And then Allie, who is practicing here with us, she and her husband make wine, and they're going to pour their wine after class.
Yes.
Remember this?
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
like on the little reception desk, you had your bottles.
Yeah.
And I was like, how badass is that? She and her husband make wine, because for me, it was bubbling in my brain, but it wasn't a reality yet. And I was like, they have bottles, they have labels.
Yes.
So we tasted your wine after sweaty yoga. And the rest is history.
I love it.
Yeah.
Such sweet memories, that whole experience early on when I started practice in 2010. And I learned about the word equanimity.
Oh, say it again.
Yes, equanimity.
Oh.
Yes. I mean, I think it was the first time I ever pronounced that word, but I really studied what the meaning of that word is and really have practiced equanimity, hopefully every day since.
Tell me more about the definition.
The definition really is, for me, dropping the drama that comes at you, your thoughts, other things that are really elevated and extreme. Once you put it into your mind and your body, just stop it. Don't give that energy. So for me, that is my biggest takeaway. And
Equanimity.
yeah, I wish I had known about that word and really understood it years ago. But here we are today at age 52 talking about equanimity.
Short behind you at 48, not too far behind. Do you know, I always say, people ask about yoga and why I enjoy it so much. And there's obvious reasons, like I grew up as a dancer, so I just love my body feeling that way. Yeah. But I always say, especially with my hand in so many different things and projects and businesses, and if I'm doing it right, which is not always, it's the one time I'm not multitasking.
Yes.
Because in my life, and I know you and I are similar like this, because we do a lot of things.
A lot going on.
I'm always multitasking. And that's the 1 30-minute or 60-minute where I'm not.
Well, and I agree. And I feel that, I used to play a lot of golf. That was kind of that same thing. But, the more time I've had to think about even what wine is in my life, wine does that too. Simply opening a bottle of wine or just pouring a glass and just letting the day fade a little bit and thinking about where that wine came from or where I first had a sip of Vermentino or Cabernet Sauvignon, it really makes your mind focus on that, either nostalgia or just be present in the day and enjoy what's right under your nose. So,
I love it. And you used one of my favorite words, which is nostalgia.
Yeah.
I love it. And it is very tied to wine.
It is. Wine's a time capsule, Yeah.
We're kindred spirits for sure. So I really am excited for my listeners who either are planning visits to wine country or just looking for new wines to ship to their doorstep. I'm so excited for them to hear your story, pun intended.
Yes, it's a true story.
So as we're sitting here in your beautiful tasting room in Healdsburg, Eric, your other half, is behind me at the desk here.
He's working on our bottling coming up soon.
Getting ready for next round of bottling. So how did we get here?
Yeah, Eric and I met in 2003. I finally got out of a corporate career situation. I'd spent most of the 90s working for professional sports teams in Dallas-Fort Worth. That actually led me into falling in love with wine. For the first time, I was just around a different set of drinkers, and maybe an expense account helped.
I was gonna say people who had money. Yeah.
But I really loved, I loved exploring wine and discovering what the heck was I tasting. What is this? Quite honestly, my very first full case of wine, I'll never forget it. I bought it at this little wine shop a couple blocks away from my house in the Park Cities area of Dallas. And somebody was in that wine shop pouring wine that day, probably a sales rep, but I walked away with a full case of Italian Merlot.
Oh.
Yes. How about that?
Interesting.
And I went straight from there to Crate and Barrel, and I bought proper wine glasses. And this is like mid-90s, right?
Yeah.
And then I decided, there was not emailing, there was phone calling, and called a flurry of my friends and said, I'm going to have a dinner party tonight. I'm making lasagna, do a big salad, some good garlic bread. You guys bring desserts.
And this is why we're friends.
Yes. And that gathering in my little duplex in Dallas, Texas, really kind of set the pace for what I love to do most. That right there. Hospitality, opening a bottle of wine, sharing stories. And over the years, my hobby of wine really became my career. And I've never looked back. I've just wanted it to get better and a little bit easier. But our love of Sonoma County really started by working together at K&L Wine Merchants. K&L was kind of the Ivy League business school of wine. still is, but Eric had worked, I think he finally retired there after almost 16, 17 years being a buyer. But of all the wines we tasted all over the world, Sonoma County and Anderson Valley for us just were top of the top. And we can just fast forward a lot of years. I went on to be a buyer at some pretty significant places, but also in the back of my head this whole time, even working at K&L, I said, gosh, I need to help you. I meet these amazing wine producers from all over the world. And they all said, we could use your help in Texas. And so I kind of put my brain child hat on and thought, you know what, I need to start an agency, kind of like a sports agent. And instead of
for them to get placement for their wines and I stores and restaurants.
Totally. So instead of having a player, I had wineries. And so I based myself in Austin, Texas for many years. And gosh, I think represented close to 400 wineries over a few years' time. So I was busy. But every week I had a different winemaker or a different marketing director, sales director in the car with me for 7 days, running around and meeting with restaurants and distributors and retailers, and then also putting together some exciting events to tie all that up. So I had a really amazing window to what wine consumers loved. And they loved, obviously, good wine. They also loved understanding the story behind wine. Yep. So Eric's last name is Story.
That's why you picked him.
That's right. I'm a Smith, the most, not the most exciting last name. But when the word got out that we were dating while visiting Bordeaux in 2011, last day we're there, I'm on about a 2.5-week trip to France. And I said, hey, we're at the end of a dinner. We're all staying in a chateau together. We've had hundreds and hundreds of tastes of wine. So everybody was a little comfortable.
Sounds terrible.
It was a terrible week, yeah. So it was a quiet moment in dinner, and I said, hey, do you want to hear who my new boyfriend is?
He wasn't there.
He wasn't there. He was actually in Loire at the time.
Oh, sorry.
On a buying trip.
You were in Bordeaux, and he was in the Loire.
It sounds so crazy, but that's what we were doing. And so I dropped it. Eric Story was my new boyfriend, and the chins hit the table. It was really fun. I mean, everybody knew that we were good friends that had met years and years ago back in 2003.
Most of them knew both of you.
Oh, yeah. Eric had grown up at K&L, so they gave us all a hard time. But from that moment, a lot of our colleagues and just peers in the industry pulled us aside and said, hey, it's time for you guys to do your own thing. Eric had left K&L and come back a couple of times over the year to learn how to make wine in the Rheingau region of Germany. And then I'd had a driver seat, front row lesson of how to run a winery and what I would probably do better, different, the same. I'd kind of taken mental notes.
All these case studies around you.
It was no intention of ever having my own winery, but it all just started making sense. And so we worked on the business plan for a couple of years before we announced it. And we ended up eloping to the Big Island, May of 13. And that's kind of when we told our world that we were going to start the winery. But up until the day before we actually officially tied the knot, we had not named the winery. And
it's hard.
Yeah.
It's one of the hardest things we've done, even with our tiny
it's like naming
label.
A child.
It is, and I don't have children, so I was like, this is going to be other than our dogs, this is going to be my naming opportunity.
It is a big deal. We already knew that we were going to start in the Anderson Valley with beautiful Pinot Noir. Eric and some colleagues at K&L that actually bought land back in the day and really put together a beautiful deep-end vineyard called Nashville Vineyard at the time. And so we knew we were going to start there. We love white wine. We knew we were going to make Sauvignon Blanc in Sonoma County. But we didn't know what to name this winery. And we were like, what in the world are we going to name this? So it really wasn't until we were standing in that very romantic cinder block government office in Kona. Eric was quick to point out the jail was on the other side of the wall there.
This was like getting your marriage license.
Yes, getting our license,
for your elopement.
And we went through that funny thing of signing the license, and I said out loud for the first time, Allison's Smith Story. And he said, oh, that sounds good. And I thought it was because it was going to be my last name. And we go down, we had planned ahead for some vacation drinks, in a cooler down at the beach that afternoon. And of course, we started writing Just Married, so we could take a picture and send it to Mom and all of our friends. And we wrote Smith Story, and I said, and Eric's like, see, it looks good, it sounds good. And we wrote Wine Cellars underneath it, and that's how we named the winery right then and there.
I've never heard you tell that story.
So you'll see elements when you visit here of Hawaii in our room. Yeah. Even our label, this is Plumeria behind our white wine label. And the Maile lei, which is the traditional wedding lei in Hawaii, is the border of all of our red wines. So
I don't think I
Yeah,
knew that
very
tie
subtle,
either.
very
Okay.
subtle. The fact that we don't have distribution in Hawaii still blows me away, but that's another story. But people there's a hashtag on Instagram, I think it says Smith Story Goes on Vacation, and there's tons of pictures from Hawaii when people take our bottles to enjoy on the beach.
Amazing.
So it's pretty cool.
And I know you guys like to travel there when you are able to get away. You've done some
Absolutely.
recent trips there.
Yeah.
So what's interesting to me is, the idea of owning a winery and making wine is so romantic, right? And I know this from having made this recent leap myself, and people say, oh, have you always dreamed of owning a winery? Because I think a lot of people do, or at least the idea, because it seems very romantic. Yeah. What I'm hearing from your story is that was not really how this started.
No.
It sort of came to be out of the evolution of being in that world. And you said people said to you, hey, you really should do your own thing.
Right, and that's when we said, no way, you're crazy, that's too expensive. No way, we know how much
How do you make a small fortune in wine?
Yes, you start with a
large fortune.
A really big one these days. But, we were encouraged. If any two people can do this, it's you guys. Your depth of experience. One of the first people I reached out to, I just sat on a panel at Silicon Valley Bank. Even he said, hey, if there's two bankable people, it's two people with your experience. You know how to not only make wine, but you know how to sell and market wine. Yeah. What we didn't have was a big bank account. We didn't have wealthy parents. We didn't own anything, extraordinary. We didn't invent toothpaste or anything, But in 2013 and 14, there was this website called Kickstarter.
I love this. I remember hearing about this at the yoga studio. Yeah. And I was like, they did what?
Yeah. So this is before GoFundMe's and all the things. Even before that, I had been, as a woman owning my own business, I supported women-owned businesses in Africa over the years through Kiva, which is a micro-lending, micro-loan site. When you give $100, that entrepreneur actually gives it back to you and you reloan that. I learned a lot about how to help others in small ways over the years. So Kickstarter for me was more of an artistic website, a lot of songwriters, movie makers, artists, more the creative set. I felt like was Kickstarter. I was like, there's no way they're going to approve us on Kickstarter.
Had there been any wineries prior?
No.
You were the first.
I think there had been some wineries like raising money for this or that, but not as a whole.
To actually get started.
Yes. So, and we almost didn't do it. So we launched it August 1. Our whole campaign was Family Farmers First. We are raising money to support buying grapes from family farmers in Sonoma County and Anderson Valley, in Germany at the time as well. And we didn't want to raise all this money to buy this big grandiose Neiman Marcus in wine country. We really wanted to stick to the traditional way of making wine, and that was growing grapes, being a shepherd. And
I also use that word all the time.
And
it starts in the vineyard.
It absolutely does.
Shepherd it along and keep it clean and don't screw it up.
Don't screw it up. So we did it. So we launched on August 1. Family Farmers First was the theme. And it really allowed us to be very just honest with who we are as people in this wine world. And I think that was very important. So many people really since then, and really a part of what we do in business right now, everybody talks a lot about authenticity and being just very real with their business practices. And we started off that way. And I think that's really important. Because even the bankers said, anybody with a lot of money could go buy a winemaker to make their wine. They have money to buy a vineyard. They have money to do lots of things, to put all these pieces together a lot more quickly. I don't know if that's easier this day and age, but it certainly, it's sparkly.
None of it's easy, no matter which way. None of
Yeah.
it's easy. Yeah. But sparkly, yes, maybe.
Yes. So it allowed us to talk about our growers because we had already put those plans in place. And in 30 days, we hit $25,000, which is nothing this day and age. It really was nothing then. Everybody says, would you do it again? I'm like, yeah, I'd ask for $5 million because that $5 million would go away in about 9 months, to do it the size that probably should be done. But that set us off. And to this day, a lot of our backers, I think we had about 150.
Did you call them something? They had a fun name. What was it?
Well, our wine club members are storytellers.
Yes, of course.
Yes. So the Kickstarter calls the people that give or backers. And because we are making alcohol, we could not give away our alcohol. we could not give away wine as a gift. So if you backed us, you got a thank you card, you got a tote bag, a little recipe book from some Healdsburg chefs at the time, and the top line, if you gave $500 or more, you got an afternoon with us in the vineyard. And quite honestly, we've met the greatest people through that, and they still are wonderful supporters and great fans and friends in our life today. And we're sitting here today going on 11 years with the lights on a Sunday morning.
In a beautiful brick and mortar. We talk about you have the brick and mortar now, but it doesn't start that way, for sure.
It absolutely doesn't. So it's like we have our own cheerleading squad out there. And as long as, and we said this from the beginning, as long as we're making really good wine, we got this.
And now, a word from our sponsor. AmericanOliveFarmer.com is a business and a website owned and operated by my friend Liz Tagami and her husband Donald. They live up in Corning, California, and I recently had Liz on the podcast where we got to taste some of her delicious olive oils, both the Arbequina and Ascalano varieties, and they're grown and made right here in California. Well, the oils were really just the tip of the iceberg, because if you check out her website, you'll see that they import gorgeous balsamic vinegar from Modena. In fact, one of them uses 3 of my favorite Italian wine grapes as the base of the vinegar: Trebbiano, Lambrusco, and Sangiovese. I can't say that without singing. And while on their website, if you sign up to stay in touch, you'll receive their newsletter and you'll get the fantastic recipes that Liz and Donald have created using their beautiful products. I'm so excited to introduce all of you to American Olive Farmer, and Liz has kindly created a discount code for our listeners. Use the code SIPWithNikki, capital S, capital W, and capital N, SIPWithNikki, for $10 off your order, and that can be anything from the site, whether it's delicious olive oils, vinegars, or even gifts. I mean, you can send someone an olive tree as a gift. How cool is that? Check out AmericanOliveFarmer.com and support this fantastic, small, California-based, woman-led business. You can even set up an olive oil subscription. Go, check it out. You're welcome. And now, back to our show. Well, you are.
Yes.
And I would like some right now.
Oh, yes. I need a
So let's do our
Sauvignon Blanc.
sip spotlight. Sip spotlight. Why did you pull Sauvignon Blanc for us this morning?
One, you're not supposed to have a favorite child, but Sauvignon Blanc that we make is my favorite child. And don't tell our Pinot Noir from Anderson Valley that. There you go.
Did you all hear that?
I love it. And also, this is our 23 Sauvignon Blanc, one of the very last bottles we have actually in the tasting room. Eric's working on our 24 bottling plans right now that we're
literally as he's sitting there.
If you hear the clicks, that's what he's doing.
Tell me why this does not have an official label on it.
So here's one with an official label.
Yeah.
Here's one with a label maker here.
Yes, brother label maker.
Yes. So as a small, here, cheers.
Oh, cheers.
I gotta take a sip.
I just want to climb in there.
That is some sunshine in a glass right there. Yum. Long story short, we use a mobile bottling line. Most of everybody does. You know, think about it. If you're not a huge winery, you're not bottling every month. We bottle 2, maybe 3 times a year. So we coordinate. If we don't have enough to bottle, we coordinate with others that make wine where we make wine to share the bottling line. Occasionally, things just don't line up on the bottling truck.
Oh, I know about this.
That's why you always order extra labels. But over the years, we have a garage full of extra labels. So we've gotten better about ordering accurate numbers of labels. But this time we should have ordered more labels.
Well, it looks beautiful. Yeah. I love it. And it's perfect for our needs today. So tell me about 2023 Sauvignon Blanc and why you're so passionate about SB, because I know that you are.
Yes. Well, I think that's really truly our love of Loire Valley Sauvignon Blanc. When Eric and I were first thinking about what would we want to make, what would we want to really hang our hat on, we thought we love Dagenot from Pouilly-Fumé. We love so many producers in Sancerre. And why in Sonoma County is not a Sauvignon Blanc producer just jumping out at us from more of a premium standpoint. Of course, we had a lot of Sauvignon Blanc that was a very inexpensive style, fun to drink, beautiful. But really, for us, we didn't feel like there was a statement Sauvignon Blanc.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah.
Statement.
So we did it. We found some beautiful vines in a vineyard on Sonoma Mountain that we began with, and also in Knights Valley. The Sonoma Mountain site provided a little bit more minerality, and the Knights Valley site provided a little bit more complexity and kind of lusciousness to the Sauvignon Blanc. And then over the years, gosh, we've made as much as 1,600 cases one year and as little as 0 in 2020.
Fire.
Yes. But in 23, this was our first year to ferment and age in concrete eggs.
Love it.
Yeah. So
those are super cheap to buy.
yeah, right? Well, the thing about it, when you have those concrete eggs, usually if you have your own winery and you're not a custom crush client, you get those because they're going to sit in one corner for many, many years. Yeah. So we opted for kind of more of a medium-sized concrete egg, and I just absolutely love how this wine turned out. We've made our Semillon from concrete egg. We've now done this. Right now we have Grenache Blanc from 2024. So I think it just adds a whole nother layer of just wow in this wine. Yeah.
For the listeners, one thing that Solavato and Smith Story has in common is we are a custom crush model.
Yeah.
So just like Michael and I do not own vineyards, nor do we own a winery that has tanks and concrete eggs in it.
Yeah.
Same for
It's a shared
you and
economy.
Eric.
Yeah.
And so you find your growers, these wonderful family growers that you support, you purchase your fruit, and then you make it in a shared space.
Yep.
I always tell people it's kind of like a co-op where you pay rent to have your space and make your wine there. So we have that in common.
Sauvignon Blanc, man.
Oh,
so good.
man.
So good.
Tell me more about this wine. What do you love about this?
I love that it has turned so many people on that either walk through our door or being shown our Sauvignon Blanc at a dinner table and they go, oh, I don't like Sauvignon Blanc. Oh, good. You're going to like this one.
Yeah, I love that challenge, I'm sure. Yeah.
Oh, yes, indeed. So it's converted a lot of people that...
Tell them it's not Sauvignon Blanc, it's Sancerre.
Yeah, exactly. Well, listen, we do get that a lot. One of my best friends said, oh, I love Sancerre. I hate Sauvignon Blanc. I'm like, girl, come on.
Same grape.
But, I think this is always the fresh factor.
Yes.
And I love the fact that we're just an hour from the coast. We eat a lot of seafood in our house. Obviously a great pairing with seafood. And the alcohol in our Sauvignon Blanc is typically pretty low. This came in at 13%. So you can have a couple glasses and not feel it. Yeah. You just can enjoy it with food.
Which we like. And I've talked about this before.
Yeah.
When you really love wine the way that we do, and especially in a pairing situation, the alcohol gets in the way.
Yes.
Like, I don't want to feel that.
No.
I want to just enjoy this in my mouth. So paying attention to that alcohol definitely makes a difference.
My 22-year-old self would never believe
Well, that's different. Yeah.
This,
We're like,
right?
wait, you're saying it's low alcohol and that's a good thing? And it's like, yeah, it is a good thing.
Absolutely.
You can have more of it, right?
We've kind of had a restart after 2020 with the fires, and then I went through a couple of years of battling breast cancer, and I'm on the other side of that.
Yeah.
So we had to slow our production down a little bit. But now we're back in business. We're about to bottle a few hundred cases. So 2025 for Smith Story is the year of Sauvignon Blanc.
Yes.
Yeah.
I love it. Yeah. It's really beautiful. It's interesting. It's layered. The word fresh.
Yep.
I get like a citrus note, but not lemon juice. I get like lemon zest.
Yes.
Like when you zest lemon or lime.
Yep.
I haven't placed which
I get
one
more
it is,
lime,
but yeah.
and sometimes I get a little bit of like it's not a true thing, but I love blood oranges in the winter. And one of my favorite pairings right now, or has been for a very long time with this wine, is winter citrus, but blood orange slices with fresh burrata, sprinkled with a little bit of honey, a little bit of olive oil, some fresh basil on there with some kumquats. So if you've never had a kumquat, and there's always a pile of them in the produce section this time of year, take one or two and just slice them the thinnest slices you can. If you layer those on top of this little burrata salad on top of the honey and add some toasted pecans or pistachios, it is perfect
I
with
have
this
to
wine.
leave right now.
I know.
And go to
I
the
should have
store.
brought that.
Oh
for
my
breakfast.
gosh, you think that's a great pairing? What does the kumquat add to the situation?
It's really tart.
Acidity.
Yeah, the acidity really plays with that burrata fat, and it doesn't knock out the wine at all. I think the combination of the honey and the olive oil, you've got savoriness there, you've got a little sweet. The wine and the good balanced acidity in this wine just makes that a happy taste.
So your portfolio, your Pinot Noirs are beautiful, and you
Thank
bottle
you.
from multiple vineyards of Pinot Noir.
Yeah.
Of course, the Sauvignon Blanc, your killer Zinfandel that I bought when I came tasting here a month ago, and I need to leave her with more because I already drank it.
It's so good. Yes.
But you mentioned Grenache Blanc, so can you take our listeners through a snapshot of what you make and what they should buy?
Absolutely. You know, I feel like every year Eric and I decide what can we bring in that might be a really fun surprise to our portfolio. We can do that because sometimes we have a wine that we just make 100 cases of. And
that's every one of my wines.
That's right.
Always.
Yes. Well,
that's my level.
Well, it's special that way. And we save that for our storytellers, our wine club. It's an offering 2 times a year. Sometime there might be a third surprise offering, and our tasting room, and sometimes our website. Our online sales on our website truly is what keeps our lights on. It's really fun to know. We'll wake up like this morning. We knew somebody in Charlotte must have taken our wine to a dinner party last night because there's a flurry of orders from Charlotte, North Carolina.
Do you love that?
Came in.
I mean, when we are small family-owned businesses, which we are, every ding of the email that comes through with an order, I'm sure you guys are the same. You just have more of them.
Jumping.
We're like, oh my gosh. And what's really fun, and we've just transitioned into this, and maybe you remember this. I'm like, I don't know this person's name.
That's great.
Because in the beginning, all of your wonderful friends and family and, Facebook friends and people are buying it. But when you get an order, you're like, I don't know this person.
Well, I'm sure we freak people out all the time because we handle all that ourselves. We don't farm that out.
Yeah.
And we often will email back or give somebody a call and give them a big thank you. And our second thing is like, how'd you hear about us? And it starts a really fun conversation. Usually they're like, you're really the owner? You're really giving us time of day? And
you're like, we're a 2-person operation here.
We're all in this together. So that's again, going back to true hospitality. I think that's why I wanted to start a winery, not for the glory of making, high scoring wines that we do, but just to provide which they are, but just for that hospitality piece. I freaking love it.
I love it too. And I love that you love it. Yeah. So can you ship to all states?
Just about. We have partners. If we don't have a license, we have partners that do.
Okay.
Of course, the big active states, we ship almost on the weekly, sometimes daily. It's really a big push before really May, June 1.
The
tends to be a cutoff for temperatures. We tend to just hold wine in the hot months until we can reship. Well, we go to bed a lot of nights thinking, all right, we got to get those 2 out because there's a storm coming or a heat wave coming.
I'm doing that right now. I'm looking at the weather. It's funny you say Charlotte. I have a wine order from someone in Charlotte, and it's been freezing the last couple of weeks. But I looked at their weather, and I'm like, all right, I'm going to ship it in the morning. I mean, this is small family-owned businesses. This is how we operate, right?
Well, and it's, I think as going into year 11, we spent a lot of time in the beginning years doing wine tastings and private tasting in people's homes. And gosh, right when the pandemic started, we were working in wholesale channels and focusing on about 30 states. And right now, we only have 2 active states through wholesale. So our online business is really crucial. And also visiting us here, fantastically crucial. But, I love the fact that we have a regional airport that American Airlines flies into.
Sonoma County, Charles Schultz Peanuts Airport.
Alaska. How do you say the other one?
Avello.
Yes, Eric's taking that down to Palm Springs for Pinot Fest this week.
Well, I want to go to Pinot Fest.
Yeah. Passion for Pinot.
I want to go.
So that's, it's 10 minutes away, actually 12 minutes away from our front door. Yeah. And you land right in the heart of the Russian River Valley. You're 12 minutes away from Healdsburg. You're an hour and a half from Anderson Valley. You're 45 minutes to Calistoga. If you want to go visit Marin County, Sausalito, the city for the day, it's right there.
Yeah.
Oh, the coast for sure. Yeah. So I really love that we have that airport.
Your tasting room up in Anderson Valley was beautiful.
Yes.
I was able to visit there, but I'm so happy that you're here in Healdsburg now.
Right. Wish we could have both.
I know.
Mm-hmm.
How do you make a fortune in wines?
That's right. We need a helicopter for that.
But Healdsburg has really some of my favorite restaurants in all of Sonoma County.
Absolutely.
And then this Bacchus Landing where we're sitting, which just opened a couple of years ago, right?
We're a baby.
I'm looking out your window behind you and I see Montagne Rousse and I see all these other small, kind of doing the same thing.
Yes.
Everyone's turning on the lights this morning, getting ready for tastings.
Yep.
And I know you guys do to events here with pizza and all kinds of things. So this is a very cool, and I think a lot of local people don't even know that this is here, Bacchus Landing.
You're right. I think the outside could be a little deceiving of what this is. It's a very serious wine place.
Yeah.
But we moved into this spot because they built this for people just like us. Yeah. This is a true place. Park your car and you can go around. I know, and just discover true. We're all first generation family winemakers. We're independently owned, and it's really important that we're here because we don't have a standalone winery facility. So this really allows us to meet our people.
So if you are traveling to wine country, I absolutely insist that you put Smith Story Wine Cellars on your list. And if you are not planning a visit, hop on to their website, smithstorywines.com, just like it sounds. I'll put the link in the show notes, and you can check out their beautiful portfolio of wines and have them shipped right to you. Allie and Eric have been kind enough to create a special discount code for the Sip with Nikki listeners. That's you. So make sure that you use the code SIP, just SIP, at checkout on their website, and you will save 10% off 4 bottles or more. And that can be for shipping or pick up and go visit them in their fantastic tasting room. But don't snooze. This offer ends March 1st. So next week, we'll pick up with part 2, where we'll learn about how Lord Sandwich got his name, because I'm sure you were wondering. We will cover a couple of listener questions. Spoiler alert, we let Mr. Story weigh in, and we'll hear from Eric on the topic of being in business with your spouse. Allie shares a very touching and powerful story that is related to Taylor Swift. And she'll even share with us the idea that she has for a screenplay floating around inside that very, very busy brain of hers. Make sure that you follow the Sip with Nikki podcast in whatever platform you're listening on. And that way, when part 2 is available, it will show up in your feed so you won't miss the conclusion of the all-American wine story. If you'd like to be an angel and support the podcast, you can do that using the link in the show notes, and you can buy Allie and I a glass of wine next time we get together. So thanks for listening to part 1, and join us next week to hear the rest of the story, pun intended. See what I did there? And between now and then, whatever you do, hopefully it's sipping Solvato Sangiovese or Smith Story Sauvignon Blanc. That's a lot of S's. Whatever it is, I hope that you sip well.